Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay.
Ryan's coming, yes, still?
He's supposed to come, yeah. Okay. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Wikimania and to the education space. Woohoo! Yeah, I know it's after lunch, and yeah, hello, hi. Oh, hello. So my name is Shani Evenstein. Until yesterday, I was the chair of the Wikipedia and Education user group. Since then, I joined the board of the Wikimedia Foundation, so I am no longer the chair. I thought Philip is going to be here, so I couldn't. Oh, he's here. Philip, come. So Philip Malkovich is our new chair, and this space is hosted by the Wikipedia and Education user group and by the Wiki. Just a second. Can you mute the? Can you mute it because it's. On the volume. You just need to lower the volume on the computer. Wait, on the computer? Yeah. Yes, because I can totally hear myself and it's really confusing. It's all technical issues that we always have. So I was saying that this space is hosted by the Wikipedia and Education user group as well as by the Wikimedia Foundation's education team. It's a joint effort, and there has been a program committee working for a long time to hopefully have a really interesting program in the coming 3 days. Most of our space is constructed by panels. We're really trying to make it interactive and discussion-like. We're going to have some workshops, and you see what I have to deal with? Just mute.
It's a separate device, and it's designed to attract attention. So
yes.
Everybody is attracted.
You gotta love technology. Hello. Yay! We did it. Okay.
And hopefully people outside could still listen, right? So
yes. I think it's just muting it here, hopefully. So we're really trying to make these 3 days count and make sure that you go through some kind of process with all these really interesting panels about education and cross with libraries and with Wikidata and with gender and issues. And so, yeah, you can go through the program and hopefully attend all of these amazing sessions. We really try to harness the fact that we're joined by a major amount of people here in Stockholm this year, and we're also trying to utilize the fact that we have internet. And so some of our panelists are going to join us from afar because they couldn't be physically here, like Paul Stacey. Can you... Oh, hi, Paul. Say again, hi.
Hello, everyone.
So in this panel, we'll represent all the panelists in a second, but some of the panels will have remote participants like Paul, and we really hope that at the end of it, let me ask, how many are here for the first time at Wikimania? Wow! Hooray to you, and welcome. And how many people have not ever done anything related to Wikimedia and education? One. Okay. How many are have done something connected to Wikipedia and education or other wiki projects? Awesome. So some of you who are veterans can hopefully share insights during the panels, and those who are new, we have a workshop especially for you and actually for everyone else. This is going to conclude our 3 days, so it's going to be on Sunday. And it's going to create a roadmap, especially for your personal goals for the coming year in education, which is an idea that I actually took from Paul's conference earlier this year. So thanks, Paul. One last thing. Before we begin, we are having a meetup for education tonight. It's going to be at the Clarion Hotel at 9 p.m. So anyone interested in just hanging out together and meeting and talking, and just come. And I want to thank Philip for taking on the roles of chair and for hosting us for these 3 days. So thank you. Sure. Okay, we're going to begin. So we'll do a really quick round of introductions, just so that you know who's on the stage and online, and we'll take it from there for a discussion of some things. We're really hoping that this session, this panel, is going to give you some insights as to why the SDGs, why do we need it, why should we care, how is it connected to our wiki work, and et cetera, et cetera. So let's delve in. And we'll start with Aram.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, actually, sorry, Aram. I do want to start with Melissa. Sorry about that. Melissa, we can have slides. Let me see. We can have slides. By the way, this is a good time to say that in the program, all the panels have, when you go into it, there's a link to the slide deck. So I'm really encouraging all of you who are here with laptops to go into it. You can help us curate what's happening in the slides. Like go to the last slide and start filling out the material. So Mel, here you go.
We're being timed, right?
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So hey everyone, my name is Melissa Guadalupe Huertas. I'm from Peru. I joined the Wikimedia Foundation last November. I work as a program officer with the education team. My background is on education and community outreach initiatives around Latin America. What we do in the education team at the foundation is we basically support our community, our global community of volunteers who are incorporating Wikimedia projects into their local education context. We really believe that, as it says up here, Wikimedia projects can support equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities around the world. And we see this in the different projects that you yourselves are doing, and how these Wikimedia education projects are initiatives that respond to local education needs and opportunities. And we see the Wikimedia projects as pedagogical tools that can help our students achieve 21st century skills, creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. So yeah, these are kind of like the thoughts that I wanted to start with. Thanks.
Thanks, Mel. Next one is Aram.
Okay. If slide says my name? No. The next one is, oh, well.
Aram. Yes, it is now.
So yeah, just very short introduction of myself. I'm from Armenia. It's a small landlocked country in South Caucasus, and we are IPE Foundation. It's the education foundation established to improve the education in the country, because for small countries that's the only chance of survival, having a good education, and thus having chances to compete against giants in this tough world. Our belief is that education is about values. We think that the educators have a mission to provide new generation with values that will help them create a better world. And the values include, of course, knowledge, but not only knowledge. It includes the understanding of all of the things that we will be discussing these days here, including equality, including fairness, including freedom, etc., etc. And if we do that properly, we'll have a better world tomorrow. That's in short.
Thanks, Aram. Next is Paul Stacy, that you've actually seen. Paul, your slide is on, so they can see it.
All right. Hi there, everyone. I'm Paul Stacey. I'm the Executive Director of the Open Education Consortium. We're a global members-based organization that serves to support and advocate for open education around the world. We have hundreds of members, and we do a whole series of events and activities, including our own big conference and Open Education Week, which some of you may have participated in. And we give out Open Education Awards of Excellence every year, so those are coming up as well. It's a real privilege to be here and be part of Wikimania, even though remote. I live in Vancouver. My team is completely virtual. And so it's 4 a.m. in the morning for me, but it's a delight to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for joining us so early. It's really great. Next is Ole. Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's fine, don't worry. And I think I was lied to. So my name is Ole Turinis. I'm an associate professor at Uppsala University, which is about 100 kilometers away from here. Yeah, that's roughly. It's a big university, and I came to the conclusion some 5 years ago that we as researchers should help out to make Wikipedia a more correct information source, because we know our students are using it, we are using it, and the problem is that researchers are not spending time working on Wikipedia. So I'm trying to engage researchers. I'm making this into a mass movement. Many people can do a little work, and typically I say that if they spend 0.1% of their time, 2 hours per year, editing Wikipedia, most likely the pages where they are the experts will become so much better. And I'm teaching PhD students and engaging researchers in many various ways. And I will give a lecture at 3 o'clock here, where you can find out more.
Thank you so much. Next is PJ.
Hi, good afternoon. It's 4 a.m. for me as well. And I'm TJ Bliss. I am at the Wiki Education Foundation. We go by Wiki Education. And my background, I have a long history with open educational resources and the broad movement around OER. I was at the Hewlett Foundation, and prior to that worked on OER research and led the global program at Hewlett, supporting organizations throughout the world to promote open education resources. In particular, something I'm very excited about that's happening was a program that we supported at UNESCO, program, an effort at UNESCO to establish a recommendation for OER. And that's a long process that involved meetings throughout the world with stakeholders in every region of the world, and ultimately is leading to a vote in November at the UNESCO General Conference to support a recommendation for OER, which basically means that all UNESCO countries will need to report on their OER activities, which is a big deal. And I'm excited about that. Wiki Education, we, as our name implies, support connecting the education community to Wikipedia. And we do that at Wiki Education primarily in North America, in conjunction with the work that Wikimedia Foundation does around education globally. We connect instructors and academics and faculty members in teaching with Wikipedia in an open educational practice that gives students information literacy and civic engagement skills that are needed to make a better world. So it's really where the purpose of open educational resources is to make a difference for students, and we're trying to do that. So I'm excited to be here.
And last, we have 2 more panelists from the community, Ed and Noreen, right?
Yes. So my name is Ad Huikershoven. I'm a Wikipedia editor since 2005. I've been a board member of Wikimedia Netherlands from 2012 to 2016. I have given a push to get an education program in the Netherlands sponsored by the local chapter. For this Wikimania conference, I'm here to discuss and reflect on the so-called 4 pillars of education. Learn to know, learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be. Who am I, and who are you? Those are the last 2 questions. And how do you learn it? How can you accept yourself, and how can you express yourself? And again, the full expression. The four pillars of education, the ideas date back to a report that Jacques Delors wrote for the UNESCO in 1996. And it's all about how can education be relevant in the 21st century. And they wrote about lifelong learning. And they reflected, okay, a lot of education systems concentrate on learning to know knowledge alone. And I reflected in the last year, okay, Wikipedia contains a lot of knowledge, but that's academic knowledge, things you can know. There's not so much vocational material within Wikipedia. There have been encyclopedias in the past that explicitly, already 200 years ago, also things from the arts and things carpenters need to know to do their work. But this kind of material you don't find in Wikipedia. So that's the learn to do part. And I think also the third and fourth pillar are important for education. So Wikipedia is here to provide educational content. We have to reflect, can we provide information, can we help educate people on all four pillars?
Thank you. Noreen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Noreen Nayar. I am someone who's really been passionate about education. I was born in Bangladesh and raised in California, and I currently live in Sweden. So I've lived in a lot of different countries and actually continents. And I'm very interested in the future work and life. So it kind of, in 2014, I helped with Wikimania London, and I realized like how passionate the Wikipedia community is about education. I found a lot of like-minded individuals. And just to touch on what Ad was saying, like, you know, how are we defining some of our knowledge? You know, how can we expand on the concept of knowledge as technology has been added to so many parts of it? I think for me, one of the things is how can we look at the people who are working at our hackathon? I find people who come to Wikimania to work at the hackathon so inspiring because there are people who are really trying to combine the passion for technology with their love for this knowledge and dispersing it in the world. And many of them are, as Aram had mentioned, from countries where human rights violations are huge. And for them, knowledge is something that they're seeking and have to literally fight to have access to. And so now more than ever, I find, you know, how important it is what Wikimania stands for as a community and how important it is to stand up for open source opportunities, regardless of what you do as a profession. And touching on that, I'm currently been working in Finland, again, another country, keep it together here, but around a SDG accelerator called kamoslife.com, and a lot of my passion comes from like creating education here, but also finding ways to take that to Myanmar, where a lot of my family lives. How can we get more people driven to work on sustainable businesses and not pitch it as sustainable, but like businesses should be sustainable. Education should be about us learning how to live in a society in a more kinder, more ecological way. And how can we make people have the basic rights so they can see the value of that, rather than fear that that means they're taking away from an opportunity. So I've been working a bit with some corporations around also road mapping for the 2030, around circular economy initiatives for product design and so forth. And so I'm just here to meet other people with like-minded passions and discover what else has come about in the Wiki community. And thanks so much for this opportunity.
Wonderful. So now that you all know kind of all our panelists, it's time to actually have a discussion, right? So I'm going to just go to this. And I've asked Melissa to kind of give you a bit of an overview of what are the SDGs and why should we care about them. This is basically my first question to the panel, and I've asked Melissa to be first just so she can give us a bit of an overview. So go ahead, please, and then we can hear some other comments on that. Go ahead.
Cool, thanks. I'm just gonna do it on presenter mode so I can see my notes. Is that? Oh, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work?
I don't think so. Yay, tech. Oh, yes. No. I mean, that's okay. We can just go back. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Yeah, so like Shani said, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to focus our thinking on Sustainable Development Goal number 4 and how that connects to our work in the education space in our movement. So thanks to data from the UNESCO Institute for Research, we know that 1 in 5 children, adolescents, and youth is out of school. And we also know that that number hasn't really changed much in the past 6 to 5 years, and that is due to different barriers to access and barriers to quality. So in 2015, the world came together to talk about how can we ensure universal primary and secondary education. And then SDG 4 was written. But it was written with a focus to not only thinking about putting every single child in school, not only access, but thinking also about quality. And what does high quality education mean? It means that students not only get into a classroom, but that they leave this classroom with the knowledge and the skills that they need to be successful as citizens and as part of the workforce. This is a shift from the previous Global Goals Initiative, the Millennium Development Goals, who were more focused on universal primary education and just that quantitative kind of aspect of just putting every single child inside the school. And that's kind of where the thinking stopped. Sustainable Development Goals go beyond that. SDG 4 in full states that ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. That's huge. That's the dream, right? But how do we actually get there? So each SDG comes with a set of targets and indicators. There are 10 targets that come with SDG 4, and they encompass different aspects of the education space. They are specific, and they are measurable objectives, and they will contribute to achieving the greater goal. To each target corresponds 1 or more indicators, which are also markers of how we are developing in this path, how far or close we are to reaching these goals. And then the monitoring of us achieving SDG 4 as a global community falls on different actors. It's not just the responsibility of local or national governments. It falls onto academia. It falls onto us as civil society members. And this is kind of where we're from and where we come from as the Wikimedia Movement. The SDGs in general have this vision that by 2030, we will be able to achieve all of them. And then as part of the Wikimedia Movement, we know that we also have this vision for what our movement is going to look like or be like by 2030. And there are 2 pillars, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word correctly, I always forget. English is not my first language, sorry. But there's 2, I'm gonna go for pillars. There's 2 key pillars in this effort, knowledge as service and knowledge equity. And we believe that when we are working with education actors and in the education space, we are basically aligned to what SDG 4 stands for. Especially in Wikimedia education, we think of our community as already moving in efforts towards achieving SDG 4. And this is on a very basic level connected to access to information, which Wikipedia does, of course. But access to information isn't just the only educational value that we have to offer. Like I mentioned, when students get engaged in the different Wikimedia projects, they are also learning important skills for the future. They are learning how to be better researchers, better digital citizens. They're learning to be more creative and how to communicate better in different spheres of, in different means of communication with different people from different cultures. So there's a lot of great value in there. And so, yeah, this is kind of the introduction and the kind of set of mind that we wanted to start with. And I'm gonna pass it back to Shani. Thanks.
Thank you, Mel. So, hearing what Mel said, I'm hoping it kind of makes more sense to you why I assembled this particular panel, because what we have here is a mix of people coming from all different types of I would say, from the field of open education in general, and we have people from the Wikimedia Movement, but also people from adjacent fields. We have a researcher, we have volunteers, we have foundation people here, we have people from schools. So we really try to assemble a group of different people coming from different types of activities and from around the world to kind of talk together about this. So I'm gonna start the discussion with this question, and this is again a reminder that our slides have the 5 questions that we wanted to discuss, and after this slide, there's basically a slide per question, so all of you are welcome to help curate what is going to be said now. So after the session, we're gonna have this presentation available to everyone. And I'm gonna start with Paul. And the first question that I have for the whole panel is, why are the SDGs important in your educational endeavors? Paul?
Sure, thanks, Shani. Well, so the SDGs, I think, act as a rallying cry for all of us to think about how to improve the current state of the world. And the perspective that I've been bringing to it is, how do we engage not just us as educators, but also all students around the world in thinking about how to suggest solutions related to the SDGs? And you could take inspiration from Greta Thunberg's efforts to bring attention to things like the climate, and how do we leverage that kind of motivation of young people to see and make the world better? One of the things that I thought I'd mention today in this session is that I'm based in Canada, and one of the things the Canadian government is doing is providing a small fund to support the Sustainable Development Goals. And I've been working on a proposal to request some of those funds to do an initiative that would have teachers and students using open pedagogy and open education resources to propose solutions to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And in so doing, both provide some solutions, but also showcase the benefits and value proposition of open education, which in this case, when we were talking about open pedagogy and the creation of open education resources, could easily involve the use of Wikipedia. And so one of the things that I'm proposing we do is think about creating a web-based game platform, or using a web-based game platform that would provide the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as challenges and host proposed solutions in such a way that the public could view the solutions, upvote solutions, and promote the suggestions from students in terms of solving Sustainable Development Goals. And then in the context of tapping into both the Open Education Consortium members and all of you, I'm interested in forming a series of panels who would provide feedback and evaluate student proposed solutions such that the best ones would surface to the top. And I'd love to do that over the course of a year, and then annually repeat it for all the years leading up to 2030, so that you could improve and make better and better SDG solutions over the course of the 9 to 10 years remaining before we reach the 2030 deadline. So I think there's some really exciting possibilities around engaging the education community and really the public, and raising awareness of SDGs both with students, teachers, and the general public, so that there's a greater likelihood of solutions.
Sounds really interesting. And I think I speak to all of us saying that yes, it totally makes sense that we work together, which brings me actually to my second question of why it makes sense to work together. But I actually want to ask TJ the same question of why do you care in WikiEd about that? Is it part of your work, and why do you think this framework makes sense to consider?
Yeah, this was a good exercise for me to think about, because I don't know that we speak a lot about the SDGs in our work at Wiki Education, probably because we're focused on North America, and North Americans, unfortunately, Canadians excluded, Americans from the US don't talk a lot about the SDGs, and we should talk more about them. So this is a really good opportunity. At Wiki Education, I should say that the SDG 4 is about promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all, and we believe that a reliable, high quality, and more representative Wikipedia is really critical for that going forward in the future, and for promoting those lifelong learning opportunities through access for knowledge, but also through engaging people in that work. We at Wiki Education exist to promote the equity and quality and representativeness of Wikipedia, and so we work strategically to improve Wikipedia in areas that are relevant to many of the other SDGs as well. So the students in our program edit across all sorts of different content areas in the English Wikipedia, including SDG 3 around health and wellness and medicine. We have a strong focus on gender equality and the gender gap on Wikipedia, so that's on SDG 5. We do work around environment and climate, and improve content on Wikipedia so people have access to more knowledge there. And then on peace, justice, and strong institutions, we have a strong focus on civic engagement and democracy and those sorts of things. But we also go beyond access to knowledge alone, which is an important thing, and give students, primarily college students, powerful learning opportunities that help them increase their civic engagement and help them increase their information literacy and their research and writing skills, which are really important. And we do that at quite a large scale. So we have about 16,000 students a year that go through our programs, and over 55,000, maybe over 60,000 now that have edited Wikipedia as part of their coursework in college, and combined have added 55 million words to Wikipedia, which is a huge amount. And we also just recently learned from the Wikimedia Foundation that the students in our program represent 19% of all new accounts on Wikipedia created last year, and 9%. And we also bring in 9% of new accounts across all Wikimedia projects. So we realize we're having quite a big impact on the Wikimedia community, on Wikipedia itself, and it's wonderful. So that's. I think I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Can I just add that there is a ripple effect from what WikiEd is doing, because they are specifically working in English, so it's not only the numbers, but it's the fact that it's the language many people in the world speak, and so other education programs or initiatives in the world not in English, in other countries, will take English-sourced articles and would translate them. And someone is saying, yes. Mm-hmm. So, thankfully, can I say just something small? There's going to be a panel this afternoon at 4:15 about smaller languages and wiki education. So how exactly, to focus just exactly on that. So I invite you to come to that, because if we delve into it too much, we're not going to have a chance to hear from on other questions about this panel and from other panelists. So, really important topic for us in education. We actually care hugely about other languages other than English, and I would just say in that context that the Wikipedia and Education user group, which is different from the Wikimedia Foundation team and different from WikiEd, which is the program just for the US and Canada, we're looking at the whole world, right? We have volunteers working in every place in the world that you can think of in various languages doing educational work on Wikimedia projects, and it has various implications. But work done in English matters, And it's just a fact, right? There's nothing that we can, resisting won't help. We can just take what they're doing and use it further, right? Because if we have a good source in English, then it's helping us to, when we translate, for instance. So thank you for the comment. And anyone else from the panel want to comment on it before we move? Yeah, Ole.
So I'm not only a researcher, but also representing something called International Science Program. We have since the 1960s been developing PhD programs and PhD courses and education research groups in low-income countries. And I just want to give you one example where the SDGs are important. We started, Sweden is supporting higher level education around the world through the foreign aid. Sorry. So while many countries are supporting the basic education, Sweden is actually focusing on research and research education. And one of the countries that's been heavily struck in this regard is Cambodia. In the end of the 70s, the genocide by the Khmer Rouge made sure that anyone with glasses or that went through high school education was executed. And since then, it's been quite difficult to actually start PhD education in this country, where you don't have anyone at that level. So from the beginning of January this year, we're starting up PhD education in Cambodia, and I'm coordinating this part for Cambodia. And when talking to the Vice Chancellor and the Minister of Education, they said that it's very important that the research and the knowledge at the universities is not staying at universities, but actually reaching the whole country. Now, the Khmer Wikipedia only consists of 7,000 articles. And I have as my goal plan that within 4 or 5 next years to engage the 25,000 students at the Royal University of Phnom Penh to enter education, provide information in Khmer to their own people, because most of the people in the country have cell phones, but they have no access to knowledge. So that's just an example of how we work with SDGs and getting people to the knowledge that we as researchers possess.
As this is the opening panel for our space for the coming 3 days, I'm really trying again to harness the fact that this is an international crowd and that we do have opportunities to collaborate and work together to kind of enhance the work each of us is doing. And I know how tempting it is, right? When you are, especially for volunteers among us, me included, I actually now realize that I didn't introduce myself properly, but I'm actually an educator. I work at Tel Aviv University, and I developed, as part of what I do, I also developed academic courses that focus on contributing to Wikipedia and Wikimedia projects. These are elected courses, right? And just to give you an example, in one course of mine that focuses on medicine that I run in med school, my students wrote now about 10% of all medical information in Hebrew Wikipedia. Now that's not the numbers of the US, but for my community, right, it's a huge impact. So this goes to show that even small efforts, right, one academic course can make an actual impact on the community. I think 7 million views for the articles my students wrote just for that one course. So that's amazing, and this is what we want. But what I'm trying to say is, when you do that, and when you are a volunteer, and you make such big efforts to run these initiatives, it's very tempting to be dragged by the work and not look outside, and not reach out, and not collaborate. You're so tied up in your own running your own thing. So what I want to ask the panelists is, do you make an effort, do you allocate some of your resources to collaborate with others? Do you see because I do, I actually make a huge effort to collaborate with others. I see the value in it, but I'm wondering if it's the same for others, and what are the values that you find in collaborating with others? So who wants to go first? I don't have an agenda, so feel free to just pop in. Paul, you want to start?
Sure. I think this is a huge and important requirement in our field at this point of time. I think that we all individually have been making some great progress with our specific initiatives, but if we really want to scale and have impact at the magnitude of the SDGs, for example, this is something that really does require a coordinated collaborative, multi-partner kind of series of approaches. But I think the other thing that's a challenge around that, and I'm investing quite a bit of time in building partnerships and in trying to participate collaboratively with other similar organizations, like I'm doing right now. There's a big challenge to it, and the challenge is just that everyone tends to have their own sort of unique visions and missions that they're trying to accomplish, and they don't always perfectly align. And we rarely organize events or activities that bring potential collaborative partners together to focus not just on talking about what they individually are doing, but on how to combine forces and create something larger than what they themselves are working on. So I think there's a real need to create opportunities for collaboration partnership. There's also a serious need to invest time in it, because it does take significant time to form and manage a partnership.
Yeah, I just want to note on what Paul just said before we go to Maureen. Mel mentioned that we are having a strategic process. Some of you know, some of you Wikimedians here in the audience, but some of you are not. So just for those who are not, we're going through a strategic process to think of what 2030 would look like for our movement specifically. But I can say that being part of the partner, we have certain groups working on different aspects of the strategy process, and I've been part of the partnerships working group, naturally, maybe. But I can share that one of our recommendations for this process is to create such platform as Paul was describing that will bring together different players from around the world to work together to achieve these goals. So I'm really hoping that when the recommendations are done and then we will go to the implementation stage, we will end up actually being a huge force driving this forward together with other participants. So I'm really hoping this is in our near future. Maureen. We're aligned. Okay, sorry for taking the... Ole.
Okay, so from my perspective, being a researcher and not knowing Wikipedia that well, I'm dependent on the Swedish Wikimedia chapter to help me out. So we're definitely partnering, and we're building the pages together, and I'm getting the support, and I tell my researchers that if you don't know anything, you ask the local librarian. If they don't know, they ask the chief librarian. If they don't know, they talk to me. And if I don't know, I talk to the Swedish chapter. And if they don't know, they talk to Wikimedia Foundation. So we make sure that the little researchers sitting there and trying to edit their things, they have a chain of command all the way back to Jimbo Wells or whatever you want to say. I mean, the whole foundation. I mean, so they know that whatever they do, we have the response, and we can answer any questions and anything we can do, and we can help out.
And bless you for mentioning libraries, which are really huge allies for education, which is why we're going to have a panel about it later on, just saying. But I do want to hear from one more volunteer. So Ed, do you want to add something to it?
Yes, your specific question about collaboration, and quite a lot of people in the room who are working with the education program are very well aware that you need collaboration from multiple partners. And you have to understand what are the characteristics of the different partners. So if you're setting up a program for students to write articles on Wikipedia, you're dealing with an online community of volunteers. So you do need a point of contact with volunteers that you announce your program and say that newcomers, students, are going to write articles, and that they should be welcomed and not all their work directly deleted or something. So you have to organize that, and you have to collaborate with the educational institution. And the educational institutions are like 19th century brick buildings. So it is very good for a chapter to have an office in a brick building with somebody sitting at a desk with a phone, who can pick up the phone if somebody could make a phone call from the educational institution, because they are used to work with other people during office hours who are like them. So a chapter with an office is a great asset in starting an initiative for an educational program. And the chapter must have contact with their members and with their volunteers and with community. So you have at least 3 partners in the equation to have a minimum of success with your program.
Thank you. I'm actually going to build on what you're saying, because you're taking it to the next question, basically in the slides that we prepared for today, which is what are our challenges, and you basically mentioned infrastructure as being one of them, and it's a good time to mention not every country has a chapter, right? This is an entity that is already evolved. Some countries have one person, that's all they have, and that person starts something, and it grows. So we have user groups for that in our movement, and those tend to evolve, and our user group for education is one such case where we just came together, educators from around the world work together to try to advance it. But again, alone, it won't work. We have to collaborate with the WMF, with WikiEd, with different entities in the open education realm to actually scale what we do. So it is an effort, but I would love to hear about other challenges other than infrastructure that you've kind of met in your work. So some are really advanced in what they do, some are just starting out, but all have different types of challenges. So maybe Aram, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, it was. So the major challenge with education is that education happens in its own cycles. And the students, generation after generation, they come, they go. It's flowing material, and you have to replicate the success with one generation, with another one, then with another one, and keep going. Keeping going is the hardest thing in education, every time. There are some good things planted, they grow, students leave, they disappear, nothing new happens. It's boring, it seems to be boring, repeat the same thing over and over again with the new students, new people. And that is probably the major challenge that we face. The way to overcome it is probably to, again, I'll be talking about that later on, but again, invent new things every time by involving students every time and having their voice in your decision-making process. And let them be creative, let them come up with their own ideas. Don't push your own agenda on them, because that will be boring for both parties, for them and for you. And that's one thing that I wanted to mention.
And in that sense, Wikimedia projects are kind of perfect, because they provide a platform that is so diverse and there's so many options. It doesn't have to be just Wikipedia. It could be Wikidata or Wikisource or, I don't know, Wiktionary. You can do so many things to create open content. Maureen, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah. Hi. So exactly my thoughts as Aram was saying. I think one of the most exciting things for me, at least, was when Wikidata came out, and I was just at the hackathon yesterday because I'm also volunteering in the Twitter team and wanted to interview some people there. And I was really interested in 2 people who were working on this maps project, and they said, with Wikidata, we see all these maps that have been added to Creative Commons a while ago. Now we can, get access to learning more about the source of these maps. And, there's so many amazing maps out there. And I think is kind of connected to a little bit of the earlier question around, like, how can we collaborate? And the challenges for me in collaboration, I think, is that sometimes we as humans, we can get stuck in our own silos of, I feel like this room, if you're not in education, that's great, because you should be education. Everyone should be in education. Everyone should be also going to things that are outside of what they're actually working on. And again, like Aram was mentioning, like the need to give students or anyone who's participating in your education process the ability to update with you. I think that's one of the things that I like about working on SDG Accelerator, is that we're looking at, we work with some young people. There's a project called Start North in Finland, and they've been working on motivating, in Finland, there's education systems amazing for young people. And one of the things I noticed is that the young people are very proactive. They are taught at a very young age that you design things, you tell us why, and there's a self-awareness of what you want and what you need, from a deep understanding of your own passion and desire for growth, to attain knowledge or attain professional skills. And I think in Wikipedia community, I heard this from these two guys who were like working on this map project, is that I think we could definitely see more, the hackathon could have perhaps more creative people realizing they can be part of it. I think that there's some ways like we as a community sometimes can silo ourselves individually and then collectively, just by having the conversations, be like, okay, hashtag education, are you in it? Or if you're not, then I don't know if you should be there. But it's like we say it to ourselves, and then maybe the collective thought is, oh, do I belong in this group? And I think the only way that I've, at least for myself, the best questions I get are people who don't understand what I'm working on. You know, when I was working in San Francisco, the best questions we had around artificial intelligence were people who would be affected by these projects in AI, but had no idea of it. And their questions were much more relevant than the people who were building it, because they're the ones, the affected population, and everyone is affected by education, so everyone can have a voice in it. Yeah.
Thank you. This leads us to the conclusion of this panel. We're actually a bit late, as you know, because we started a bit late. So I'm hoping you'll give us some more time back in the break, and if not, that's okay as well. But I do want to ask as the last question for this panel. We've already mentioned the need to create some kind of platform. We know it's necessary for us to collaborate. We need some place to do it. And are there any other things that you think need to happen for us to succeed in this joint effort to bring this live? Paul, do you want to go first?
I think we could really benefit from identifying the major possible partners around the world who are all focused on working in education in open ways. And then I think that those entities need to be brought together to create their own set of collaboration partner initiatives that they collectively agree to pursue and target them at something significant like the SDGs. And I think it's only through such a collective effort that we'll actually see the scale and magnitude of impact that we're all aspiring for.
Do you want to go? Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I think that I was chatting with my friend Alek Tarkowski from Poland over lunch, and we were talking about how surprised we are that this community here, people interested in Wikipedia and education, we don't see the same people here that we see at the Open Educational Resources meetings and meetups and communities and things like that. And we're just wondering, why is that disconnect? We didn't have an answer for it.
People don't know about it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know what the reasons are, but there are reasons, and that's an easily solvable thing. And we wondered if it was just how you self-identify. If you self-identify as doing Wikipedia stuff, do you also self-identify as doing open educational resources? And to that point, you know, the Hewlett Foundation and other organizations have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in a pretty strong community of around open educational resources. And there's been a lot of other investment in time and money on Wikipedia, obviously, and education, that bringing those two together shouldn't be too hard. And I think that's a really important next step. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm proposing it as a really important next step. So we should all see ourselves working toward the same goals in the same community to start, and then make sure we're getting together.
Yeah, I would just add two real quick notes on what you just said. One, this takes us right to the first keynote after this panel by Alam about open educational resource. And two, my biggest surprise, I think, last year was meeting some of the global OER community and realizing that they don't think Wikipedia projects are OERs. So it's kind of
some of them don't think that, but we're changing that too.
Some of them, yes, we are. So it's a process of actually educating even the people in the open education realm of what it is that we do, because they have a different perception of what Wikipedia is and what Wikipedia collaborations look like. And when I say Wikipedia, I mean all of the wiki projects, right? It doesn't have to be just Wikipedia, but Wikidata, Wikisource, Wiktionary, and all the others. And so some of it would be, for me, just awareness, right? Awareness of the right people at the right time of what it is that we do in order to make those connections. So I totally agree with you and Paul. Any other remarks for?
Yeah, if you're asking students, take the example of the long presentation this morning about the pottery class, and as an analog, okay, you can submit at the end one perfect article, and we grade that. Or you can show us 1,000 edits, and we grade you on that. And there's a very steep learning curve in editing Wikipedia, and you probably need to make at least 1,000 mistakes before you understand all the rules and norms that are on any project.
Wonderful. Mel, last remarks?
Yeah, just kind of to build on some of the comments. Wikipedia, getting our students involved in the movement and in understanding the Wikimedia projects by having them write an article on Wikipedia might not work for everyone. So I just like to encourage people to think beyond Wikipedia. Look at Wikisource, look at Wikidata, look at Wikimedia Commons, but mostly look at your local education context. See what are the needs, what do the students in local schools need, what are the challenges, the limitations that they have, and the opportunities that you have to use any of the Wikimedia projects as a pedagogical tool. Many students are, and young students are very visual. They like to have their faces on the computer as well. So why not introducing them to Wikimedia Commons first? And I know like the community has a lot of challenges, but little by little, and tying that as well, the different projects with more specific learning objectives. Just putting the student in the center and not necessarily thinking about how many new articles can we create or how many bits and edits can we add to our language project. Just kind of like taking that step back. And I know that in the education space, there's a lot of resistance from educators, about having their students read Wikipedia. So why not starting there? Why not starting with helping educators understand what is behind a Wikipedia article, how to look at the resources, how the references, and having their students approach to Wikipedia start there, start just understanding critically the structure of the article and the community that's behind it. So, just kind of like that, not necessarily jumping in to write Wikipedia articles from day one. If you want to start an education project in the movement, just taking a few steps back and really thinking about the students in your education context and looking at the other projects. Yep.
Yeah. I would also add that from my experience supporting, not only running my own courses, but supporting a variety of educators who wanted to implement Wikipedia into their courses, and we had to find like smaller portion to contribute, right? So one of the things that we did in the past few years has been adjusting the One Lib, One Ref campaign that some of you might have heard of. It's the idea of every librarian adds one reference to Wikipedia. And it's a huge campaign that's all over the world and really successful. And I adapted it to one student, one ref, right? So there is a really, you mentioned learning objectives, right? So having something very small for the students to do so they can see success immediately is very important, and that's just one example. You can show them a query on Wikidata and make them correct something, and it's seeing it, adjusted in real time makes a huge difference.
And you can measure it as well, measure the students' progress, and use that as a talking point with teachers. Like if you talk to teachers sometimes about like, oh my God, we're putting all of this knowledge on the web, and it is valuable, but like that could also be seen as an extra workload that I have to deal with new skills that I have to gain, and they don't see directly applied to their pedagogical practice. But if you start talking about, these are the skills that your students can start learning, they are going to become better researchers. They're going to be able to analyze information that they consume online, like TJ mentioned, information literacy. That is going to get better. Then, you know,
And with
we might be
Wikidata,
getting
data
a better
literacy.
connect to them.
And data literacy when connected to Wikidata, which is also a huge deal right now these days. I would only add to that we do see, because you mentioned there's a lot of resistance in academia and in schools. I would say that we've actually seen a rise in the number of educational institutions, educators in general, and lecturers wanting to collaborate with us all around the world. So it's not just it's not a small thing. It's been happening for the past decade, I would say. I'm actually researching the topic as well. So there are actual, academic papers about it, and we do see a rise, and we do see everyone is using it, even if they're not saying. And there's a lot of research to why those people are cautious, and it all comes down to cautious towards Wikipedia, right? So all of these research show one thing. It comes down to education, to not knowing how the tool works. And once you eliminate that and you kind of work with them and show them how it works, the resistance disappears, because they do work with it all the time. So we do have a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm kind of hoping that we'll do it together. So I'm hopeful towards the future, and I want to thank everyone who attended this session and all panelists, especially Paul, who woke up at 4 a.m. Gosh. Thank you so much. And thank you, Paul. And we invite you to stay here for our first keynote, which would be around talking about OERs. We're a bit behind schedule, so we'll try to squeeze it a bit, but it's going to be super interesting, and it's going to be right after talking about the PhD program, and then we'll continue with some panels. So thank you. Thanks, Paul.